Good day to you all. And today we have our guest, Dr. Adonis Wazir. He's a medical doctor and works as consultant for Lecturio. And let me read some of his profile, few words about him. I think you all know the topic is about COVID-19 and changing medical education and Lecturio platform. Dr. Adonis Wazir is medical doctor and consultant at Lecturio. Dr. Adonis is a medical doctor based in London and a master's student in medical education at Swansea University. He graduated from the University of Balamand in Lebanon and worked as research fellow at the Department of Emergency Medicine at the American University of Beirut Medical Center and as a researcher with the Eastern Mediterranean Office of the World Health Organization. During his studies, Adonis served as the president of the Lebanese Medical Students International Committee and later served as the regional director of the Eastern Mediterranean region of the International Federation of Medical Students Associations. As a medical education consultant at Lecturio, he conducts and reviews research on health professions, education, creates content, delivers capacity building webinars and workshops to students and faculty. Dr. Adonis is part of the team that ensures evidence-based learning sciences strategies are at the core of the Lecturio platform. So without further ado, let me hand it over to Dr. Adonis Wazir. Please continue.
Thank you very much, Mubashir, and thank you everyone for joining. I just wanted to thank the organizers and Al-Sadiq International Virtual University for having me today. I took the liberty of exploring what the International Virtual University has been up to recently, and I'm really impressed. And I think all of us are impressed at what we have been able to accomplish since the COVID-19 pandemic and the different ways in which we innovated to bring these trainings and development to everyone everywhere. So it's really great to see that we have a lot of people joining us today. If you want, just while I introduce, you can go ahead and tell me where you're joining from, maybe in the chat, just to see that, to make sure that you're listening and then everything is clear, and also just to get a feel of where the different attendees are from. So feel free to use the chat as much as you want to get involved. Today's talk, I'm going to be talking about COVID-19 and its impact on medical education, and focusing as well on the Lecturio platform and how we can enhance learning. We talk a lot about technology enhanced learning these days, and I think just before I start, I do want to remind everyone that the technology is here to enhance learning and to help learning. It's not here to replace or to kind of revamp how we do learning. It's here to support. So we should always stay learner-centered in our approach. And the technology is there to support us. So without further ado, I will continue. Today's agenda, we're just going to look a little bit about COVID-19 and how the change has been happening as a consequence of COVID-19. We'll just talk a little bit about some barriers and best practices of what has been happening over the past couple of years. And then I'll talk about how those feed into the scientific underpinnings of the Lecturio platform. And then I'll show you what the platform is like, and then we can have a discussion, or I can answer any questions that you have. So starting off with the disruptions from COVID-19. So in 2020, after the COVID pandemic was started, AMI, the Association for Medical Education in Europe, hosted a webinar titled "Adapting to the Impact of COVID-19." Sorry, just give me 1 second. Yeah, adapting to. Sorry, just technological. There we go. Wonderful. So as I was saying, sorry about that. Adapting to the impact of COVID-19, sharing stories, sharing practice. So this webinar was attended by medical educationists from around the globe, and the discussion led to kind of this conclusion of the following broad categories of the different disruptions, which many of you can probably relate to. So we're talking about campus-based teaching and learning, about clinical teaching and learning, selection and assessment, and educator needs. Now, just looking at the different disruptions that we were being faced with, we can see that many of them are things that we are still dealing with to some extent today. This is why talking about COVID-19 disruptions is still relevant for us, even though it's been over 2 years. And perhaps now, talking about it now is even more important because there has been much more research that has been done in this period of time, but also we have tried a lot of things, and trying a lot of things means that there's a lot to reflect on, a lot to understand what worked and what didn't work, and how can we take it forward. So we do sometimes feel like we sound like a broken record talking about COVID again and again, but there's still a lot to learn, and it's all about knowledge sharing at the end of the day. This is a quote from Professor Gibbs. If there can be anything positive that results from the COVID-19 pandemic, it will be as a result of the need to advance what was in the educational melting pot of the future. We have been made to think, to innovate, to practice, to evaluate, and research. And I guess the whole fact that we are here and what brings us together is an innovative approach to learning. I'm just going to pause. Are my slides visible? Just checking, because someone in the chat is mentioning that they might not be. Just please let me know if there's any issue with the slides. I'm presenting my slides at the moment.
All good. All good.
Good. Okay, perfect. Thank you. So the shift to e-learning and technology-enhanced learning was already happening regardless of the COVID-19 pandemic. And looking into the literature, you can also see that experiences were being shared, people were trying to innovate. But as history has shown us, these big disruptions, even these big tragedies, eventually serve as catalysts for change, because we are forced to kind of, we're thrown into the deep end, and we need to find a way to continue doing what we do best. We needed to find ways to continue providing quality education despite all the disruption. And this is what led to all of this outburst of innovations, many of which we realized that, okay, some of these things are here to stay because they work so well. And this is why COVID-19 serves as this catalyst for change. So just looking at the literature and to see what was happening during the COVID-19 pandemic and what kind of changes were happening. This was a systematic review conducted last year, looking at the changes in undergraduate and undergraduate medical education due to COVID-19. And this was from over 15 countries, and a lot of the literature from more countries even supports this, is that the main trends that schools were taking was to replace in-person lectures with online classes, kind of like what we're doing here, but also adopting various remote educational methods to compensate for the discontinued clerkships. And with both of these, we can see that technology plays a huge role. There's in fact another huge survey that was done in higher education, not just health professional education, that looked at how was technology been used during the pandemic. And while I go over these, I want you to also look at this slide, please, and just share with me in the chat. Have you used technology during the pandemic or in the last 2 years for some of these reasons that you see here? Or maybe have you used them for reasons that were not mentioned here? I'm just interested to see within your context how much the technology play a role. We can see that many universities or many educational institutions were using it for group work, for virtual collaboration and knowledge, connectivity and community building, especially in a time when this physical community building was lacking because of social distancing and the restrictions. Of course, augmented and virtual reality, which has different integrations and different implementations, different contexts based on the availability of resources, machine learning powered teaching assistants. So we know, and maybe we now know more than ever about the potential of using these technological resources to look at data and look at the student, how the students are using these platforms and make inferences, which is something that we really didn't use or really didn't have as much as before. Of course, there's AI adapted course delivery, student progress monitoring, as I mentioned, some classroom interactions, so some live sessions, but also the ability to record and upload content into repositories so that your students can access them as well as classroom exercises. So we've heard from universities that have gotten on live sessions with their students, conducted simulations, had role play building, or some even examinations. So there's a big spectrum of technologies and the applications of technologies that were used. And I see that some of you relate to the content, to the uses of technology and how they have been done, but we know that it wasn't a walk in the park, right? It wasn't easy. It was a disruption, and we struggled during this whole process. And there were a lot of barriers to the full use of the technology. I'd like to hear from you as well, if someone would like to mention in the chat, what kind of barriers did you use, or what kind of challenges? I want you to think back to that point when you realized that things need to be done differently right now. I cannot meet with my students. I cannot do things the same typical way. I can't get, in the lecture hall and talk to my students or get feedback or give personalized feedback. And I have to move to technology. That wasn't easy. So what kind of things did you struggle with? I can see that someone mentioned the loss of face-to-face interaction. And this is, I think, one of the things that it took us a while to realize the implication of the face-to-face loss of interactions. You cannot assess the learning process in student, absolutely. And this feed goes on also to the point that we can't really just get Zoom or another piece of technology, put it there, and expect that we'll be able to deliver the same quality of education to our students. This was technically a whole new world for us that we had to adapt and we had to understand. And looking into the literature, we can see that there were a lot of these barriers. So we had no confidence in that the platforms would work because it's very new, and many students and faculty are not comfortable with new things that perhaps aren't tested enough or aren't personally tried enough. Time limitations. So we're already limited on time. We're expected to learn how to navigate these platforms. There's the cost of the platform on the individual or on the institution. Deficit in skills. So not everyone knows how to operate these technologies, but yes, that results in techno stress. That's the first time I hear that term, but techno stress was huge during this period. Lack of awareness of the different kinds of platforms and technologies available. Poor communication between the different stakeholders that were involved, and the belief in no true impact on learning, or how can you assess student learning. So it's a completely different paradigm. It's not like we were making slow and steady changes to our medical or healthcare professional education process. We suddenly had to shift, and we realized that there were all of these different gaps, and a lot of the difficulties that you face, I'm sure your colleagues faced as well. And the literature is there to support it. But how do leading institutions make the most of online education? This is something that we also looked at. And the institutions that report to have had a good experience with this move to technology or making the most of online education reported these general themes. So we have the idea of having a seamless journey. So this means having a clear educational roadmap. So for students, this means understanding what I'm doing and where it fits within the entire spectrum of learning, and seamless connections. So the more the platform is difficult to navigate and the more different clicks and sign-ins that the student has to do, that adds, I guess, to the techno stress that was mentioned. I'm going to use that term more and more now. But it also makes it more difficult. So the more seamless the journey is, the more easier it is for the student and the educator. But there's also the engaging teaching approach. So having a range of learning formats as opposed to only using Zoom, for example, to give lectures. That we are using technology there, but once we don't have this range of formats, it limits the effectiveness and making the most of it. We talk about captivating experiences, so classes that are high quality with up-to-date content, adaptive learning. This is perhaps the strongest factor or the strongest thing in online learning or technology enhanced learning, because we can finally adapt our learning in a very precise way. We know that personalized learning and individualizing your teaching to your students, considering their different backgrounds, their different baseline level of knowledge, their different insight, their different interests, and the different things that motivate them, that's really tough for you to do as an individual teacher. But using these platforms and using this adaptive learning approach has proven to be very useful for these institutions. Real world skills applications. So it's always beneficial if you can get hands-on experience or at least identify the relevance to the learner. So we know this, that students that go into medical school, for example, they're there to become doctors. Once we come and start teaching them things about biochemistry and genetics, the things that are very essential and basic, if they don't see the relevance to their clinical practice, that's going to decrease from their engagement and the effectiveness of the learning. And finally, there's the caring network. So once there is, many of you mentioned the platform issues and the lack of understanding and the need to learn to adapt to use this platform. When you have a caring network providing you with timely support and a sense of community, that we are all in this together and we're all going through these struggles together, that enables successful implementation of the technology within your learning. So just looking at the things that I've spoken so far. So we have taken the best practices from online learning. We've understood the different barriers that were faced during the implementation and this shift during COVID. We understood what the learners and what the educators want. There's a lot of literature about this. We know what kind of preferences our learners have. We know what kind of things the educators are comfortable with. And there is an era of change in education. We all need to acknowledge this, right? So when you combine all of these two together, you can potentially present one of the most advanced digital and medical nursing education platforms in the world. So I'm going to talk a little bit about Lecturio and go back to the topic and just talk about how all of this was factored into the platform that we've created, and why I personally believe that there is great quality and great impact on medical education. So if you haven't heard about the Lecturio platform, we've collaborated with educators from top universities. Only some of them are listed here. And we've recorded the entire library of medical and nursing curricula. So you can find all of those videos in short, concise video formats available on the platform, bringing this kind of world-class education video content directly to the students and to the educators. And that's just the videos. So we have over 10,000 educational videos covering all of the content. We have 30,000 recall questions that are linked to those videos. So we know, and I'll show you a little bit about this in a few minutes, but we know that formative assessments and the role that they play is paramount. So if you have these 10,000 educational videos and you have your students just go and watch through them all, there is no learning that's happening there. It's very passive. So we try to make it active by interspersing these recall questions, making sure they pop up after every video so that the student is forced to test their knowledge and objectively measure if they've understood the content. And then a side advantage to that is that their performance is also tracked so that you have insights to the student's performance. We also have over 1,500 concept pages. So these are distilled articles of information. We have a question bank of over 7,000 clinical case questions, which the students can use for their own self-directed learning, or you can assign them or use them for exams, or you can add your own questions. So it's a really customizable experience, as well as some mapped clinical simulations as well. So all of these different elements fall in together. The educators, the videos, we have the AI-driven approach. We have the analytics and tracking and the question bank and the assignments and study planning. So all of these fit in together to give you two sides of this solution. So for students, it serves as a personalized smart tutor. So we talked about adaptive learning, right? And about doing what the student wants and what's good for the student. And it serves as a digital teaching assistant for you as faculty, because you are unable, due to time restrictions and resource limitations, to provide this individualized approach to the greatest precise detail, whereas you can do that with the help of technology. And this technology is not here to replace anything. Like I said in the beginning, technology is here to support what we currently do and to enhance it. So whether you use a current learning management system, Canvas or Blackboard or Moodle, this can be easily integrated so that the student doesn't have to navigate multiple websites. You can after you do your synchronous teaching, record the lectures and upload them into the repository in the platform. And you can extract all of this data and use it to your advantage, whether it's for research, whether it's to have data-driven learning, or just to, to make your own inferences and make your own adjustments and so on. So these are some of the features that are there on the platform. But is this enough for us to make the claim that this is the most advanced digital and nursing education platform in the world? Not just yet. Although we do cover all the content, we have top quality educators, smart functionalities, and easy integration, meeting all of the criteria that I mentioned earlier. There's still a little bit more that we need to think about. Recently, we've been doing some work and research into metacognition, which some of you might be familiar with, which is just the idea of thinking about your thinking. And when it comes to education, really, it's about asking the question, do you really know what you think you know? And this is perhaps one of the biggest pitfalls in learning and in teaching, which is that students learn or study a certain way because they think or they feel that this is the best way to study, and they report feeling that they did better. But in reality, and when you look at the evidence and the research that's being done, that's not always the case. There's an illusion of knowing that happens with all of this. And this is where metacognitive bias comes inside. So when we view this whole thing through a metacognitive lens, we know that students don't always know what's best for them. They have some preferences, but there are some better ways to study and learn. We know that with some teachers as well, there are some methodologies that work much better than others, although some instructors feel more comfortable teaching a certain way. So just viewing this through a metacognitive lens, the same needs to be applied for any form of education. So even if we look at technology-enhanced learning and platforms, and we look at what the students want and how the students like to use the platform, or what things they're more comfortable with, ultimately, we need to remember that e-learning must be rooted in evidence as well. We talk about evidence-based medicine, right? We need evidence-based medical education, even when we're using technology, especially when we're using technology, because there's a big risk when we use technology that there are so many technological advances right now, and we can be wowed by a lot of the new features that we see. But that's not what we need exactly. What we need is to look at, we need to be learner-centered. We need to look at the evidence and how does learning happen best. And then we need to design our tools to support that in an evidence-based way. Because there's the decades of research on learning, and there's a lot of knowledge that must be factored in. Because effective learning can only happen through employing evidence-based strategies. So how do we do that at Lecturio? We do that at every single step. So when we talk about the videos that we have, all of them are filled with multimedia design principles in mind. So the slide is almost engineered in a way to make sure that it reduces extraneous cognitive load on the student. It highlights the relevant information. We have the lecturer there who is talking with the proper tone, who's had training and how to deliver these, not to mention again that they're from top universities. It covers, like I said, all the key concepts. The videos are 3 to 9 minutes long, because we know that a 2-hour lecture, the student is more likely to tune in and out and not retain the information as much. What we've done is that we've chunked it up into small, digestible chunks that can be assigned or viewed at different paces, so they can be spaced out, and they're interspersed with these questions that I mentioned, so that we constantly have this active learning component. We're constantly stimulating the student to retrieve this information. Our question bank, like I said, it's clinical basis. So we use the whole idea of using concrete examples and case-based learning. Whether you're using a presentation-based curriculum or more information-centered, the students always need to apply that knowledge in a clinical setting. So we have these elaborate question banks that offer student a very easy-to-use interface, but also offers feedback, which we know is paramount for student progression. So when they answer the question bank, they get the explanation to the correct and incorrect answers. And another dimension is it generates the data that you can use to give feedback as well to your students. We also have mapped 3D models, again, making it simple for the student. That seamless approach that I mentioned earlier, you can watch the video and also play around with the model and look into it. And we have, so this is the adaptive spaced retrieval algorithm. So when I spoke about these questions that test the student's knowledge, they all kind of feed into this deck, kind of like flashcards. So this is like a box of flashcards, and it's smart by telling you which flashcards to review based on the student's accuracy level of the question and the self-reported confidence. And I'll show you exactly how that works within the context of the platform in just a few minutes. We also have a study coach that looks at the different things the student has assigned. And I guess, again, this will be better explained when we look at the platform in detail. I'm just going to pause a little bit here on this slide. So there's recent literature that was published, I think it was in Medical Teacher, that looks at instructional videos, because we all know how relevant this is right now. Instructional videos in e-learning, and they've devised a checklist for quality assurance. So not anyone can just make a video and put it up there and then assume that it has good quality that is up there. So this is based on a lot of research that they did, and they developed this kind of checklist. And I think it could be useful for the people on this call if they factor these considerations in when they're developing content or when they're curating content, because we know that today the role of the educator is also to deliver content and curate content from what is out there. So how can you know that the quality of the videos or the quality of the instructional videos are good? There are these 4 general elements, which are the educational design, generally referring to how long is the video, is the purpose clear, are there clear learning objectives and like extra resources? And then there's source reliability. So where is this information coming from? Is it clear where the resources are coming? Does it say when this video was last updated? Do they acknowledge that there are some areas with uncertainty, or are they just claiming that this is the knowledge that is out there? So this contributes to the source reliability. Then there's the multimedia principles. So all the things that I spoke about the visuals being nice, the audio quality, is it okay? Because we might think that audio quality or visual quality is not as important as the content, but bad audio quality can be really distracting, and it can really reduce the effectiveness of the learning that is taking place. So are the visuals, are there too many things on the slide? Are there too many distractions, for example? So all of these fall under multimedia principles. And finally, we have accessibility. So accessibility means we know that learners have different abilities. Can the video be slowed down, for example? Can we add subtitles so that people can read if they're more comfortable with reading? Can I translate to my own language if it's a repository of certain videos, and so on? So these fall under accessibility. So sorry. So I really advise you to factor this in, and I can actually share the resource with you for those that are interested. So like I said, e-learning tools must be rooted in evidence. But when you take an evidence-based approach, right, similar to in medicine, we base our decisions and our treatments on the evidence, but we also have a duty to generate evidence as well and contribute to the literature as academics. So the e-learning tools, we believe they should be rooted in evidence, but also enable evidence-based teaching and learning by giving the data. And our platform does that as well. So everything that goes on in the platform is tracked, generates data for you. You can see it on the platform as well on your dashboard, but you can really dive into all of these different metrics. And in fact, we're doing a lot of research with different partner institutions looking with answering specific research questions. So for example, does the adherence to this spaced retrieval algorithm increase student performance on examinations? Or does the different learning preferences of the student influence how they use this platform? So, or generally e-platforms in general. So there's a lot that can be used here. Again, using the data to generate evidence so that we can continue to teach evidence-based medicine in an evidence-based manner. I'm going to stop sharing my screen just for a second while I open the window so that I can show you the platform. If there are any questions, you can feel free to leave them in the chat right now, or if you want to unmute yourself and just ask them to me, I'll be happy to answer them. Okay. So I've just moved to the platform right now just to show you how that environment looks like. And we're assuming at the moment that I'm a student. As a student, I've received an email from one of my instructors telling me that I have an assignment that I need to do. So by just clicking on that link, I've landed on this page that you see in front of you. What you can see here, this is my study planner. So I can see that I have all of these different assignments. I'm late on some of them. Some of them I really need to get started because they're due very soon. And some of them I'm still comfortable in terms of the time that is available. And I can see the different assignments that my instructors have put for me, or I can see my personal tasks that are there. I think. Yeah. Just need to sign in again. So I can see the different assignments that were assigned, or my personal tasks, things that I want to review, for example. And what's nice is there's this graph that that is up there that you can see. So you can see in blue, that would be my workload based on, working up to a certain deadline. So I'm going to have just 2 minutes per day, for example, here, and then here, my workload is going to go up to 6 hours. And then there's another peak that goes up to 5 hours. But what the platform does is that it gives me with this smart study planner approach that splits up and steadies out my different responsibilities so that I only have, an hour or so of work per day. And then I can just, by clicking this button, I can see what recommended things I need to do today. So for example, for today, I know I need to review my upper limb anatomy, which is going to take me an hour. And then I should look at specific treatments for hypertension. So this is my to-do list for today. Now, I've decided as a student, okay, I'm going to look at those in the afternoon, but right now I only have a few minutes of spare time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into my spaced repetition deck. So again, just to remind you, this is the kind of like the box of flashcards. And you can see here, I have 42 questions due today. I can just easily look at them and review these flashcards. And the way that this works is that I will select an answer, select my confidence level, and then get the feedback. If this is incorrect, I'll need to try it again. But once I get it correctly, based on the accuracy and the confidence level, it goes into this algorithm that tells me you've learned it for 5 days or for 2 weeks. And just based on how accurate and how confident I am with that knowledge, it's going to keep returning and coming back to me. And you can see here, I'm not being a very good student. I have 42 long overdue questions, but you can see how many questions I've mastered. You can see how much time it takes me to answer a question and a lot more detailed analytics. And these questions, I'll remind you and I'll show you in a few minutes, they also pop up at the end of your videos. Now, let's say I'm a clinical student, I'm on the ward, and I'm going to see a patient, and I'm just opening the notes to review what's happening with this patient. And I see that this is a 30-something-year-old patient with IgA nephropathy. I don't really remember the specifics of IgA nephropathy, so I can easily just go here and search IgA nephropathy. I can also use the book matcher functionality, which essentially, if I have the app on my phone, I can take a picture of the patient notes and instantly get a list of related videos or courses. And you can see here, so this is the video on IgA nephropathy. I don't have time to watch it right now, so I can just bookmark it and add it to my review list. But then if I go back, I can open the concept pages, which is that distilled article that I spoke about. I can quickly read about this, see the overview, diagnosis, workup, management. Okay, I've gathered this all up. I can mark this as learned up here if I want, and it'll add it to my learned category. And then I can go on, see the patient, and continue. So moving on, I can, going back to the assignments that I've had on my study planner, let's say I want to look at some anatomy videos. So I can go here to my videos. I can see that we have all of the content present here, and it will be structured and tailored according to your specific institution. So some of you might have an integrated curriculum, some of you have different blocks, some of you have their own approach to all of this, and it can be mapped exactly according to how you deliver it to your students. And you can see here, for example, in the anatomy, we have 36 hours of video content, get a description, and going into the subsection of head and neck anatomy. You can assign this bundle, for example, to your students. You can give them a due date. You can assign it to a certain group, for example, my first year medical students, and save, and they'll get an email, kind of like what happened in the beginning. Or you can do this from the individual video as well. You can assign this individual video, and this is what the video lecture looks like. So you can increase the speed. You can add the subtitles, which are there in English, but we also have them auto-translated into different languages as well. And this is a searchable transcript. So I can, this is in Thai at the moment. So I can search, for example, for anterior, and I can find this is the part that I'm looking for in the video. And if I just click on it, the video is going to skip to that section, again, contributing to that seamless experience for the student. So we also have the 3D model, like I mentioned before. So while the student is looking at the lecture, he can, they can look at the 3D model that's interactive. I can hide the trapezius. I can zoom in to see the attachment of the sternocleidomastoid, and so on. We also have learning objectives mapped to every video, which can be helpful for the content mapping that we do to your curriculum as well. You can download the materials as a student. You can also download them as an educator and use the presentations that we have here in your lectures, and so on. So just to show you what happens at the end of the video. So I just finished the video and I got this this pop-up. So for example, I'm going to select this answer and then put high confidence here. You can see that I learned this question for 12 days because I got it correctly with high confidence. And this then goes into that AI-powered algorithm that I mentioned, that box of flashcards that I can retrieve. What we also have here is a summary note that pops up, because we know from the literature that once we prompt students to try to retrieve the information they just learned, they're more likely to retain it rather than just rewatching or rereading the information. And there's a lot of literature to support this. Many universities and lecturers, what they do is at the end of the video, they will prompt the students, tell them to think about certain applications, think about certain challenges, or just try to remember the main points in your video. And then the student can write these notes down and then save them and retrieve them or use them at a later stage. And then the learning continues. So this is kind of what it looks like from here. One more thing I'd just like to show you is the question bank. So the question bank, as I mentioned, it's a customizable approach, and you can decide as an educator how much you want your students to customize it. They can just select the topic and then go and try to solve it. But as an educator, you can also handpick individual questions and then assign them. But I'll just quickly show you what the test would look like for the student. So again, case-based, they can highlight certain things, they can cross out certain things, select an answer, submit, and they get feedback. So I got this correctly. I get the answer for my correct explanation, but also why those options that are wrong are wrong. And in case the student feels like they still need to review the material, they can easily access the video from here.
All right,
again,
so
contributing to the seamless approach that I spoke about. Auto translations are also available here. You can access the lab values and so on. And at the end of it, the students going to get a detailed analysis of their performance, which will be accessible to you as an educator as well. But what's really nice is this adaptive review. So just based on the different concepts that were in the exam, the student can select, for example, I want to review these concepts, start adaptive review, and it's just going to give me a detailed playlist of the different videos that are there. So again, contributing to this adaptive approach to the students. So now what I'm going to do really quick is jump to, I'm going to put my educator hat on. Now I've become a faculty member and I am looking at things from the different side. So this is not accessible to the students. The first thing that you can see on your dashboard is you have all of these analytics. So you can really look into the different activities of the different students. You can see what topics are more difficult than others, which you can split by subjects or systems or any other custom. You can look at different potentially at-risk learners, which is a score that's calculated based on, how they do on their assignments, when they do their assignments. And then this really tells you that, okay, maybe you need to keep an eye out on these students, as well as your different assignments and so on. But now let me just go into the specific assignments and look at what's going on. So you can see here that the assignments that I'm putting for my students, I can track them. I can see who the author is and who's doing what. I can see how much assigned workload I'm putting on my students to know that I, to not overdo it. And I can really look at the detailed progress of any individual assignment, trying to see who started what, how did they do on their first attempt, on their last attempt, how did they rate their confidence and their accuracy and so on. And you can really get into all of these things. And again, the statistics can go from the individual learner. So I'll just look at myself here and I can see, okay, this student has this study planner. We can see these are the items on in their study book. These are their library statistics, repetition performance, Q-bank performance, risk score. I get a profile, a comprehensive profile for each learner. I can also look at groups. So I can look at, for example, my anatomy students and look at all this data. I can look at things from the library perspective. So I can, for example, go to internal medicine, and then I can see that there seems to be a lot of issues in dermatology, and then I can zoom into neoplasms. I can zoom into the specific topics that the students are struggling with, which can be mapped and adjusted again according to your needs. Now, let's say that, actually, just before that, let me show you. So we work with a university in the US called Texas A&M, which some of you might know. And what they do in their university is when their students start off, they start with the Foundations of Medicine course. So what we've done here is we've mapped our content to their curriculum on a weekly basis, meaning that each bundle, this is the first week, this is what the students of Texas A&M see when they access their platform for the first week. They will see this structure. So all of these videos are our videos, but the curriculum and how they're arranged is for Texas A&M. And this is part of the content mapping that that we do with the universities that we work with. But let's say there is something that you would like to teach, or you teach at your particular university that is not as part of our content. We know that there are different contextual things. Maybe you'd like to give a course on the legal aspects of healthcare, or cultural perspectives, or so on. You can very easily create your own course, and I'll quickly show you how to do that. You go to the course creator, you create a course, you call it context course, for example, you give it a description, save, and now we've created a course. And then you can add a lesson, call this intro, for example. You can give a description. You can upload a video file that you can record. Don't forget the quality checklist that I mentioned earlier. You can add recall questions. These questions will pop up every time your student watches your video, and you can see, you can put correct and incorrect answers. And then you can upload the learning materials. And as soon as I do this, I've created a course that my students can access, and it will be accessible only to your students, of course. One last thing that I will quickly touch on is the learning paths catalog. So think about everything that is available on our platform, from videos to articles to concept pages, exams, question banks, and so on. You can create a learning path that basically mixes and matches anything that you want. So let's say you want to give some integrated or interleaved approach. You want to give some cardiac physiology, but then you want to give a clinical case because that's how you do it at your institution. And then you want to give a little quiz. And then maybe you want to link an external article and then a Google form so that your students give feedback, for example. You can easily do that with our Learning Path Creator, giving you really complete freedom to mix and match, create your own path to create a unique experience for your students based on exactly what you are looking for. So just looking at all of these things, all of the different the effort that has gone into the design of the platform, the ability and the analytics of everything that comes with it, and the easy to use experience for the students, the comprehensive content, the smart features, the evidence-based functionalities. This is why we think that Lecturio really is one of the best digital education platforms that is out there in the world currently. So with that promotional verb, I'd like to end my presentation and thank you all for paying attention. I think we have some time for questions or discussion. If you have anything about the platform, about the context, about anything that we spoke about today, I'd really love to hear from you and engage with this international audience. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for the nice presentation. If anybody has any questions, please, you can unmute yourself and ask.
So this is Dr. Shafi Zaidi. Let me congratulate you first, Adonis. It's a wonderful presentation, and really for a person who was born a couple of centuries ago, it's mind-boggling. It's really amazing, the technology that. So we're living in a world which is totally different. Like Hasnan Zafar, one of our colleagues, used this terminology previously called technogogy. So you're talking about technogogy. And the new word I've just heard is technostress. My question is that how do you cope with the problem of copyrights, like in published material or videos, or you just give the links because you said they can open these things. So how do you manage the copyright issue? That's my question. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your question. And yes, all of these new terms are terms that we need to get really comfortable with. I mean, I think I'm going to be using technostress in my future talks. It really captures it very well. So the videos that we have are our content. So we own the ownership there. But once the university works with us, they have access to all of this content and they can use it for their students and so on. The students can also get access to this platform and access the content as well. But whenever you contribute your own content or you upload your own questions or videos or anything like that, that is restricted to your institution and you determine who has access to them. They're not the ownership of Lecturio, they're the ownership of you within our platform.
Is it a kind of LMS or something different to that?
So it has maybe elements that you would expect from an LMS, but we don't consider ourselves an LMS because there's all of this content that you can add and contribute, and it integrates really well with LMS because many universities, I think most universities, use a current LMS right now, and there's always this worry about, okay, it took us all of this effort to train our community to use this new technology. How are we going to do it with this new, with this again yet new technology? And the answer is it really integrates well. So you can imagine if you're using Moodle or a typical LMS, the student would only have to sign into their Moodle. They can click a link and access the content from there. It can get really technical, and usually what we do is we let our technical people talk together and figure it out. But we know that it's very doable and it's very easy to do. So again, making it quite seamless for both the students and the faculty.
So finally, one more thing. We had a wonderful talk by Dr. Karim Kayumi on cyber patient. It's an expensive thing. He's the inventor and the founder. He was generous enough to offer us Sadiq International Virtual University free of cost. So what we've done, we're not using it, but we've given it to University of Kufa and to Karbala in Iraq, two famous universities. Kufa is very old, Karbala is new. My question is that how can we access your technology and benefit for the welfare of mankind? Mind you, we're an NGO. We're not even an NGO. We're part of an NGO called Medics International, which is working, more like pro bono. Everybody who's engaged in Sadiq International Virtual University is a recognized teacher. There are people who have immense experience learning, teaching, writing, public. How can we access this technology through courtesy or pro bono or payment, or what is the modus operandi? Thank you.
So thank you very much for that question. And that really is close to me personally, these initiatives, and my personal involvement with Lecturio is because of the social mission that is associated as well. We do have medical education development initiatives where we work with universities, in difficult contexts and so on, to provide support as much as we can. We are a private corporation at the end of the day, so it's always about that balance. But what I would say is the most important thing is there interest and is there motivation to really venture out there and try out this new technology? Because if there isn't, then it won't be as fruitful of a collaboration. But if there is, and if someone on this call really has the context or the willingness to really try this out, I would just invite you to reach out to me after this, send me an email, and we can communicate together and see what best arrangement we can set up to provide support as well.
In the chat, I just asked, just to confirm, do you have learning paths in your platforms for every individual to follow?
Yes, I just answered it in the chat. Actually, we do have learning paths, and they're very customizable. So you can you can use content from our platform. You can use quizzes. You can use the question banks and the clinical cases. You can put articles. You can link external resources, Google Forms, or a research article that you want your students to follow, and then you can track their performance along all the different progressions of this learning path. So you can really have like a bird's eye view of your students' progression on the different objectives that you set.
Yeah, that's great. Just one more just clarification. Just now you said that we can integrate your platform with learning management systems. So, and just now you were showing dashboard about learning analytics from your platform. How far we could integrate with, we have a dashboard on learning management system also.
Right. So from a completely technical aspect, I'm not sure. I just know there is there's an LTI something that facilitates this integration, and if you are more if you're more tech savvy on that side, I can connect you with someone on our team who can provide all of this technical insight on how the integration can happen. But it can happen at a good and sufficient extent according to the universities that we've worked with. I hope that answers your question at least a little bit.
Thanks. Yeah. Okay. Thanks. Maybe we'll contact you later on to get more the technical details. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for S1. Yeah. Please go ahead.
Sorry, I just wanted to say that I've left my contact details in the chat in case anyone would like to reach out afterwards.
Sure. Over to Prof. Shabi or Dr. Mubashir.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, Mubashir, how can we expand our platform? Like we're starting these courses, clinical courses in due course of time, research methodology and writing skills and what have you. So this amazing material, I mean, this technology is the present, not the future. So how can we access and benefit with this technology? I'm just being selfish on behalf of Sadiq International Virtual University.
True, sir.
Selfish and greedy.
So we can integrate if like, but I think certainly cost is one factor, an important factor, because at this moment, Sadiq International Virtual University is not charging anything. So that's an important factor, I think. But do you also have like a video, live video session integration into your system, like Zoom or Google Meet?
We don't have that at the moment, so not no synchronous element
Right.
in terms of video. We don't have that right now. No. But like I said, what is typically done is, the platforms for synchronized teaching are there. They're well established, and it's very easy to add a recording to the platform and then use the functionalities that are there as well.
And any like games, learning games or teaching games are there in the platform?
So some instructors do kind of utilize a little bit of a gaming approach with their instruction on the video, but it's not directly 100% interactive because it's a recorded lecture, but it's definitely engaging and fun. But what we've also done recently is take advantage of this learning path functionality, which is really, I think, the revolutionary part within the platform, because you can practically do whatever you want with the learning path. You can integrate any format, any external resource, any kind of survey collection tool, any game, Padlets, and so on. We use that during the learning path as well.
Perfect. Great. Anybody else? Yes, please.
I'd love to maybe after this, we can get together on a meeting and really talk about what your university is offering and how they are offering, how you are offering it, and then how we can, work together and iron out these.
Absolutely. Anybody else has any questions, please? Or want to give any comments, say something?
Let's hear from Dr. Sholeh Bijgili. She's here, and she is the one who actually invited Adonis Wazir introduced. Sholeh, would you like to say anything, particularly on gamification and how it can be used, incorporated in the system?
Hello, everyone. And thank you, Dr. Adonis. It was a great presentation. And thank you, Dr. Shabi and Dr. Mubashir and Mr. Hasnain for all your suggestions and collaboration with this presentation. I think Lecturio is a very good option. And as Dr. Shabi mentioned, the same as CyberPatient, both of these platforms are doing quite well. And at the moment, I know that Dr. Mubashir is working in a similar platform. And I think if we can get together and to find the possibilities that each one of the partners can provide to the other side, it will be a very good collaboration. And I think it would bring a great success. I hope after this meeting, as you mentioned, we can arrange for this. And as Dr. Shabi mentioned, we are working on technology as well, especially gamification and simulation. And I think if there is a possibility to add those features into your system as well, it will be of a great benefit to our users. Thank you very much for joining us, and I really appreciate it. Thank you, Professor Shabi.
Thank you, Sholeh.
Thank you so much for arranging this.
Welcome. Yeah.
No, I think we have to request Adonis to come back, because this is incomplete. I mean, I'm just beginning to learn about, so I need to learn more. So depending on your time, Adonis, whenever you have time, please let us know. We'll have another more extended webinar, invite more people. And of course, all this material will be uploaded, and we'd like to invite you to be on our WhatsApp group as well, so that you keep abreast with the developments, what all we are doing at the moment.
I would love that. Thank you so much for your kind words.